Mallory Blair is the CEO and co-founder of Small Girls PR. She co-founded Small Girls PR at the age of 21, and she is now leading this business, and it's been growing every year. Let's welcome Mallory Blair on stage, who will be presenting case studies on just how brands can engage in social issues.
All right. Believe it or not, despite these technical difficulties, most of what I do is technology PR. I started with a background doing brand marketing and PR for brands like Apple, a lot of technology giants, and actually graduated from here at NYU while I was working those jobs as an undergrad and started Small Girls PR right out of college. We've won a bunch of awards, so I've got credentials. You guys can look that up later. I don't want to get in the weeds talking about that stuff today. But some fun facts are I started the company when I was 21. I just turned 31 on Monday, so I've been doing this my entire adult life and really have never done anything else, so this is all I got. By the time I was 25, I had as many employees as I was years old, and now we're at about 65. So bootstrapped business, have grown it ever since. We have clients like Stitch Fix and ThredUp and brands like Rent the Runway and Hinge and Plated and things like that, but then also giants like GE and Olay, which I'll talk a little bit about today too. I think all of that intro is just to say and set up the fact that I started this agency when I was 21. I had no PR experience. I had never studied PR when I went to NYU. I actually studied art, but just became fascinated by emerging technology and social media and thought there was a lot of potential to connect brands creatively with new emergent audiences. But my first lesson in doing PR without any experience was actually when I was 7 years old. So like I mentioned, I went to NYU. I'm actually a lifelong New Yorker. I grew up here in New York on the Upper East Side, and my dad had immigrated here and to Brooklyn. So my grandparents lived in Brooklyn, and I would always spend the holidays with them. And I promise this will lead to my first PR campaign. Just bear with me. So I would spend the holidays with them, and in 1995, it was the first night of Hanukkah, and I had spent it in Brooklyn. And I was driving back with my dad from there, and I saw the Empire State Building, pictured here, was lit red and green. But Christmas wasn't for about 3 weeks. So I asked my dad, hey, it's the first night of Hanukkah. Why is it red and green and not blue and white? And he said, that's a really good question. You should write them a letter and ask. And he did that facetious thing that all parents do, and I thought, okay, I will write a letter and ask, because I was 7 years old and I didn't understand he was joking. So I went home and I wrote a letter and I said, Dear Empire State Building, told them the spiel, and just asked, hey, can you light it blue and white for Hanukkah next year? And they wrote back a form letter that was like, hey, thanks for your inquiry. We get thousands of these a day. Sorry, we can't personally respond to everyone, but we see that you requested something about Hanukkah, and that implies your religion must be Judaism. And every religion gets one holiday, and yours is Israeli Independence Day. And I was actually kind of excited by this rejection because I asked my dad, hey, am I Israeli? I had no idea. And my dad was like, you're not Israeli. And I was like, well, then why are they saying that I get Israeli Independence Day? And he's like, I don't know, maybe you should ask them. So I wrote back, and I was like, hey, I asked my parents, I'm not Israeli. Do you think that you could honor this? Because I bet there's a lot of American Jews who would like to see it blue and white for Hanukkah, and Christmas last year wasn't for 3 weeks. So I think you could do both. And it was just a really earnest opinion. By this time I was 8 years old because the form letter came back 6 months later. And then another 6 months went by, and I got another letter in the mail. And this time the envelope was thicker, which, as you know, is usually a good sign. So I was really excited, and I opened it, and they were like, hey, we heard your request. We flagged it up the chain. The owner of the Empire State Building is really excited by this and thinks you're absolutely right. We want to honor your request. And now it's going to be blue and white every single year on the first night of Hanukkah. And nights where it overlaps with Christmas, it'll be half red and green and half blue and white. So this caused a media storm. They sent a press release out, and it became a feature in the New York Times. I was in my personal favorite magazine at the time, which was American Girl. And I was on the Rosie O'Donnell show and Howard Stern. We got contacted by Seinfeld that they wanted to put it in one of the final season episodes. Didn't happen, but what a great story nonetheless. And that was my first lesson that you can really drive social impact and change with any level of experience, aka none, and at any age. So that was my first lesson early on. And my next lesson was, just because it's never been done before doesn't mean that it can't actually be done. This was a world's first, and I did it at a really young age. And then finally, prioritizing values and sharing values with communities that are your constituents, in this case, New Yorkers, is not just the right thing to do, it's actually the smart thing to do. So by being more diverse and inclusive, it got the Empire State Building a lot of great press. It got the owner a lot of great press. And this is her mugshot, actually, on the bottom. Because what I didn't know then, but found out later, is that at the time, the owner of the Empire State Building had actually been corresponding with me from jail, where she was serving time for tax evasion. So this was great PR for her. And it also did the double duty of being an amazing moment for the Jewish community, and not just New York, but the US at large, because it's such a big landmark. So that sort of set me off on this charge of like, I can do anything. I can start a PR company at 21 years old, and like, media is good, I guess. But what's really interesting is the time we're living in now. I'm a millennial. I'm like right in that middle zone of the millennial age. And millennials are going to hold $1.4 trillion in spending power by the end of 2020. And 78% of millennials believe that brands should be contributing positively to the world we live in and are responsible for making the world a better place. So again, if 78% of $1.4 trillion in spending power only really want to buy from brands that have values they share and they feel like contribute positively to the world, whether it's through the environment or through diversity and inclusion, like this example here with the Empire State Building, or whatever it might be, then that's a nod that it's not just the right thing to do, it's a smart thing to do for business and as brand gatekeepers, which a lot of us in this audience are. I recognize that a lot of us, I happen to be the CEO of a PR agency, but at the end of the day, I'm still doing PR and marketing. It's not like I can go around and tell all of my clients, hey, you should all of a sudden redo your business model and all of a sudden be this socially conscious brand in every single vehicle of what you do. I recognize that as nice as that would be, that's not typically the way that our success is measured as PR professionals. Those aren't our KPIs. However, based on this last instance, I think that you can really back up why you want a campaign or a moment to be designed the way it is, and really pulling out what are the authentic shared values of a brand and the values of consumers, and how can you try and create every moment to express those values and drive press that gets those values pulled through in your messaging. So one way that I try and do this is hold on, I'm actually gonna have to read this a little bit. So first, identifying a cultural tension. So figuring out what's happening in culture, in the news, in politics that is either really exciting for or really upsetting for your customer and target consumer, and where does your brand stand on that point? How do you name what's happening in culture? Can you give it a voice and a rallying cry, some sentence or some hashtag that you and your customers can get behind or that you can participate in? And how do you hero the change? What do you do with that rallying cry that really backs up that you're actually driving measurable, meaningful impact? So some great examples of this that are really broad that I think a lot of us probably have passion for are on the bigger scale side of the spectrum: racial injustice, Black Lives Matter, sexual harassment in the workplace, Me Too. There's a lot of sentences, the future is female, for feminism, things that have become rallying cries that people identify, can tell as part of their story, and that we, as especially millennials, expect brands to pick up those values and bear responsibility for them and act on them. So I'm going to tell you guys a little story about one of our clients and something we did using the same formula with ThredUp. By show of hands, how many people here have heard of ThredUp? Oh, fabulous, wonderful. So for those of you that didn't raise your hand, ThredUp is the world's largest resale community. So you can upload new or gently used clothing, and you can buy new or gently used clothing, and participate in what we call the circular economy. So it's a way more sustainable alternative than fast fashion, which is polluting the environment. So we actually do an annual survey every year with ThredUp called our annual resale report, where we survey audiences. We work with a third-party insights group, and we look at ThredUp's own users to identify how are they feeling about the environment and fast fashion's impact on the environment. Why do they choose ThredUp over, say, going straight to a Zara or a Gap, because they carry those brands too. And we found that 59% of consumers expect retailers to create clothes ethically and sustainably. And obviously for ThredUp, that is very meaningful and authentic. About 5 years ago, when we did similar surveys, talking about sustainability, even though it was a core value of the founder and of the company at its core, it didn't test as well on consumers, which is really crazy to think about, that now that millennials and Gen Z are coming up and have more and more spending power, and this is such a key issue for them, we can actually double down on sharing that message and having it resonate with the people that are buying from the site. 74% of 18 to 29-year-olds prefer to buy from sustainably conscious brands. So this is really ThredUp's time to shine, and sustainability is an authentic, socially progressive moment for them to get behind and rally behind and be thinking about for all of our PR campaigns. So what is the rallying cry? Fast fashion is actually the second most polluting industry next to only oil. So there's oil, and then there's fashion, and fashion's not that far behind. So our rallying cry here is fast fashion is scorching the environment. And literally this actually happened. One of the account executives on our beauty team, who doesn't even work on ThredUp, had seen that Burberry released in an earnings report that they were burning millions of dollars of unsold luxury handbags in order to avoid resale and avoid diluting the market value. So in other words, they want to keep their bags selling for thousands of dollars. They don't want sites like ThredUp or The RealReal or Poshmark reselling for half the cost, because then they're not as perceived as valuable. And this is something Burberry actually bragged about in their earnings report to please their investors about their profit margins. So again, a girl with several years of experience saw it on our beauty team, and she flagged it to our ThredUp team and said, hey, I feel like this is an authentic moment that ThredUp would be really aggravated by, and this is why they exist. And this is killing the environment. People would be upset about this if they actually knew about it or read the earnings report. We should talk about it. I just don't know what to do. So we did a company-wide brainstorm, and we came up with #BurnBerry, where we drafted an open letter to Burberry and pointed out the error of their ways and heroed the change by offering ThredUp as the savior here, that they could do a partnership where not only would they take all of their unsold goods that they were otherwise burning, but they would also then upload them for sale to an eco-charity partner to offset the carbon footprint that Burberry had created by burning all of the goods. So this ended up being something we released to media, and we got a ton of coverage on it. Newsweek, Forbes, Fortune, Fashionista, the list continues, and ThredUp made it into all of these headlines. Burberry eventually actually had to acknowledge this. It created a media storm, and they have since announced that they stopped the practice of burning unsold goods. So this is a great example, as a reminder, of identifying a cultural tension. Millennials want apparel brands that are more ethically and sustainably minded. We have a rally cry, fast fashion is scorching the environment, in this case, literally with Burnberry. And we heroed the change. ThredUp's Burnberry was the catalyst for putting out a fast fashion fire. So this is an example of being able to actually drive meaningful, real-world, measurable, positive impact, but also meet your press KPIs. So again, large impact can happen at any level with any budget. An account executive had this initial idea. Great ideas can come from anywhere. They can come from you, whether you are in your first year of PR or your 100th year of PR. And this was a $0 budget. We spent nothing on this. We drafted an open letter. We worked with ThredUp's graphic designer to put it on their Twitter, and then we sent it to media, and that was it. And also, prioritizing values is not just the right thing to do, it's also the smart one. So this ended up being the largest ever driver of organic social traffic for ThreadUp ever in the history of the company, and had huge earned media value, especially for the cost, again, which was $0. So another example on women's rights, I've identified a tension with, is everyone here familiar with the pink tax? I guess by show of hands. Meh. Okay, great. So about like more than half. So it's the tax that's put on products of similarity between men's and women's products, where women's products you end up paying more, simply because it's pink washed. And if you look at this chart, what's really interesting about it is the products that suffer from the highest pink tax are personal care products. And then if you zoom in on personal care products, the highest one within that is razors, 109% markup, which is nuts. And a fun little visual here. So we work with Billy, which is a female-first shave brand. And our rallying cry that Billy actually founded on this premise is, let's fight the pink tax, let's go down with the pink tax, and let's create affordable razors at equitable price points to men's razors that do the job just as well, if not better. And we heroed the change. So we worked with Billy on messaging and promoting what we called a pink tax rebate. So upon launch, if you signed up for their razors, basically it was a simple customer referral program that most direct-to-consumer companies actually do and use every day. We just rebranded it as giving the customer back the money they otherwise would have spent on a pink-washed razor. And again, we got amazing press coverage out of this. Even though the KPIs are, PR as a press person, this was rooted in a very authentic, meaningful value to the brand that really resonates with young female consumers and women everywhere. So again, Glamour, Forbes, Hell Giggles, Paper, CNN, Today's Show, it was everywhere. But wait, there's really more work to be done on behalf of women when it comes to shaving. It's not just the pink tax on razors. There's so much more to unpack there. And Billy's whole motto is, we can't change the world, but we can start with razors, and we can help women's rights through razors. So this is a typical razor ad pre-Billy. Do you notice anything weird about it? You can just shout it out. The women have no hair. They're shaving hairless legs. That is very strange. That would never happen. It's a waste of time. And you never see that in men's ads, right? Like, men are not shaving on clean-shaven faces. They're shaving beards. So Billy noticed this as a problem. It's really proliferating a false ideal that all women are hairless and yet still buy these razors. And then this is a Google search I actually did last night at 2 in the morning. This is when you Google search real women's legs. And these are the first results in Google. Do you notice anything weird about this? They're all white and then none of them have hair. That's also not a realistic representation of women's legs, right? So Billy decided to create this rallying cry, let's normalize conversations around women's body hair, and let's be more diverse and inclusive when we're portraying women's legs or bodies. So they're the first ever women's razor brand to show hair in ads ever. And an example of that is on the left. And they got a lot of love for this. Now brands like Gillette and Joy, et cetera, they've all jumped on the bandwagon, and they're now too showing hair in ads for women's razor brands for the first time ever, even though they had not done it for the past 100 years. And then also doubling down on that, Billy created a library where they called on women to submit themselves with their real body hair, whether they're shaving it or not. Their whole thing is, do you? We want to support you. And if and when you do choose to shave, use Billy. So they want to help make the internet a little fuzzier. And again, tension, rally cry, hero the change. It's the same formula, right? But what about my KPIs as a PR pro? Same thing here. Got a ton of continued coverage. And if you look at the headlines too, Refinery 29 I really liked. This $9 razor, again, affordability, lower than even men's razors mostly, is changing the way we talk about body hair. Billy's Project Body Hair campaign wants to normalize women's body hair even if you don't use their product. So a lot of our messaging was being pulled through because it's so simple and clear cut. And we're actually creating, and by we I mean mostly Billy, right? Billy is creating social change and changing conversation around how women see themselves, how women are portrayed in media and editorial, and now all these other brands are following suit as the disruptor of the industry. 1.6 billion UMV just from this one campaign alone, so within the first week that we released this. And there's other brands too. I wanted to give one more quick example in that same space of women being sent a message that they have to be hairless, thin, white, whatever the ideals are from advertisers and places like New York Fashion Week, and had their own spin on how do they combat these negative stereotypes and be more diverse and inclusive. Because I think with Billy, like I mentioned, the founder wanted to create a razor brand that fought the pink tax. But not every brand has an origin story that's rooted in feminism or in social progress. But that doesn't mean that you can't become part of a movement at any time if you really believe in it and your audience believes in those same values. So this is an example of a heritage 100-year-old brand. I'm gonna cruise through because I don't have a lot of time, which is Olay. So Olay's rallying cry here was, we don't need expensive makeup and clothing or to modify our weight and behavior to be our best selves. We're already our best when we're true to ourselves. And that means being fearless in the skin that we're in. So how do we hero a change around combating narrow beauty ideals, especially as a skincare brand that's so squarely in the beauty industry? So we worked with Olay on debuting the world's first ever label-free and makeup-free New York Fashion Week show. Because New York Fashion Week is when the tension is at its highest, where we're being told, oh, you have to be a sample size 0. Models are usually less than 100 pounds, but also 5'11", and dominantly, again, Caucasian, and spending thousands of dollars on dresses. So by saying, hey, you can walk in a New York Fashion Week show just in the skin that you're in. We're not going to put you in expensive fashion. Actually, we put people in cloaks of invisibility, basically, from Harry Potter that just reflected the space around them. So you could really focus on their smiling, shining, fearless faces. And they had no makeup. And we worked with YouTube celebrities like Lily Singh, and activists and feminists like Denise Bidot, and women who typically are wearing a lot of makeup and are seen as fashion icons as well, but also are really passionate about these social issues and could be authentic spokespeople for this campaign. So here's an example. I mentioned the invisibility cloak. It's harder in these photos, but as you can see, like, we're not using fancy luxury labels, and we ended up engineering so much coverage that really pulled through the sentiment and the messaging, and got kudos for really pushing the entire industry forward. We even had a Teen Vogue writer, the one that wrote this piece that says, models walked makeup-free at Olay's New York Fashion Week runway show. The beauty industry is finally changing. She told us, hey, I told my editor that your show is the only one I would cover because I only wanted to cover shows this year that were authentically trying to combat what's become a really narrow definition of beauty and fashion during New York Fashion Week. So that was a really amazing kind of behind the scenes KPI as well. And Olay now gets credit for helping usher this forward because they're a huge brand people pay attention to, and they're often kind of setting the pace for the industry. So again, just because it's never been done doesn't mean it can't be. This was a world's first. It was the first time ever that there was a makeup-free, fashion-free, big ticket New York Fashion Week show that editors were sitting front row for. And that is all I have now. But I wanted to do a Q&A in case people had questions, whether it's a brand you rep or anything that you saw here. And I also wanted to mention that we're hiring across many levels. So in case anyone's looking for a role in New York or LA, Small Girls PR is hiring. Just selfish plug. But yeah, if anyone has any questions. Yeah.
So first of all,
I don't know.
do I need this? Thanks. Wow. So first of all, I thought that presentation was amazing, incredibly compelling stories. I have nothing to do with the fashion world, but I recall the Burnberry, so that made its way into my sphere. My question for you is, in the midst of all this compelling content, how do you guys measure success? Are there financial, like, ROI components to these efforts? And maybe you could, without getting into specifics.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the KPIs for every brand are totally different. Obviously, it's hard to measure something soft like driving meaningful change in an industry or impact. So we look at messaging pull through a lot of the time. So we'll say, hey, I'll try and pull out some examples from what I mentioned with Billy earlier. How many times are articles saying that we're normalizing conversations around body hair and or changing the conversation around body hair? How many times does that appear in the lead? What are the UMV? So in this case, it was 1.6 billion. A lot of the time we'll try and, at least internally, if not directly to the client, say, okay, this is what we think is realistic as just a benchmark. I mean, I have a lot of feelings about media impressions and UMV, but at least it's an industry benchmark you can use. We'll also use, like, some brands we use scorecards with for different messaging or different points that are important to them that we want to be pulled through in articles. In terms of financials, 3 out of the 4 examples I used here cost $0 in budget to do. 50%. The pink tax rebate, the Burnberry idea, I guess the Empire State Building idea, so that's 3 out of 5. So the majority here, we didn't have to say, oh, the ROI on this effort because there was no investment. It was a $0 investment. So everything's 1,000% return. Where we do have investments of hundreds of thousands of dollars with some of our larger brands, there's absolutely a return that's, of course, expected from that because we're not just throwing stuff against the wall at that point. But again, it's in PR, it's not performance marketing. Sorry, that was a really long answer. I hope it was helpful. So messaging and UMV. Yeah.
So I was really inspired by you talking about how you started your business so young and how you didn't really have that much PR experience beforehand. Could you talk about maybe like what's your best advice for young women and men now who want to like break into this industry? Like what advice would you give them?
Is this working? Oh, it is. Thank God. Okay, great. You're going to have to pass it on to the next person. My advice would be, especially when you're young, and I presume you have perhaps less responsibilities, like if you're untethered by a spouse or children or whatever at that stage, you have more time now than you'll ever have in the rest of your life. So my sentiment there is always like, I always all throughout college and then in the first 4 years of my career while I was building Small Girls, not only was I doing that full-time job and working weekends, but I was also always doing things for free for friends. And not like keeping score with a tick for tat, but the idea of I do not know how this will pay off, but one day I believe it will because I believe in karma, whether it's directly from this contact. That's actually how I started my company at 21. I worked 4 jobs while going to NYU. One of them was I was a broadcast journalist on MTVU, which is part of MTV I don't even think is around anymore. And another was hosting Paper Magazine's Paper TV. And so early on, I had contacts at MTV and at Paper. Granted, those are jobs I was paid for, so maybe not the best examples. I'm going to give you examples of stuff I did for free. I, for free, consulted for a friend's jewelry brand and would help her with her social media. She became one of the first clients at Small Girls. Similarly, my co-founder volunteered to help Tumblr plan their first ever community meetups. She did many at the time when they were a 4-person company working out of a co-working space. Tumblr also became one of our first clients. Both of those instances were before either she or I knew that we would start a company. And so we didn't have an end goal in mind, but we had the end goal of like, this will help me by helping other people. So I always say, like, if you have a friend who has a jewelry brand, because that was my example, do it now. Anyone else with a question? Oh, can you run oh, great, someone's running the mic, great.
Hi, how are you? I'm Sabrina from
Hey.
NYU SPS studying PR
Cool.
and corporate comm. And I've actually heard of your firm before. It's very well known in the PR world, especially NYU, because you came from NYU. And it's a very influential type of public relations agency, which I think is kind of breaks the mold a little bit differently, which what I like. And one question that I have for you is like, from you studying in art, were you at Tisch by any chance?
I was at Gallatin.
Gallatin, very nice. So what is one thing you learned about the PR industry while being like an artist? Because artists are very creative.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a lot of similarity. I should clarify, I studied sociology of art, so I wasn't,
Nice.
I did performance art, but I wasn't actually like sitting around painting all day. I was really studying other people who were more talented than I was. For those of you that don't know, Gallatin's related to this. It's a school for individualized study, so you make your own major. I think that has a lot of similarity to doing PR, especially in an agency environment. I was coached on throughout college interdisciplinary thinking. So if I took I took a copyright law and commerce class the same semester that I had a psychosexuality 101 class, and those were at 2 different schools at NYU, and I had to defend to my guidance counselor and in my ultimate equivalent of a dissertation at the end of your time at Gallatin, how those things are related and how those industries can impact one another. So again, psychosexuality and copyright law. Like on paper, those things have nothing in common, but you have to make them work, and through that you can think really creatively and bear something that's new. I think that's a lot of the examples here and just our approach to PR in general. It's not enough to release a product anymore. You have to think about what is going to be disruptive, what's an angle no one's ever thought of before, how can I make this fashion brand relevant in a food outlet like Eater or Delish to gain more market share and expand into a new audience. And I think a lot of that is just interdisciplinary thinking, but anyone can take that approach. Like, how do I break the mold into a new audience or a new vertical? It doesn't just have to be because I happen to have gone to Gallatin. Any other cues? Oh, yay. Hi. Just shout.
Hi. I just had a question. It seems your agency works a lot with services or organizations that have geared towards millennials or younger audiences. Do you have any clients that are different audiences?
Yes.
Older?
Yeah. So we, our longest standing client is GE, General Electric, and we've been working with them for 7 years now. We've done everything from oil and gas mergers for GE to using advanced materials from their labs to create a new type of high fashion concept sneaker to break into consumer audiences. So yes, actually Tegan, who's here with me from Small Girls, works on accounts like the City of Tulsa and the It Gets Better Project, which is a foundation for LGBTQ youth. So those are examples where it's not so specific to millennial interests, but I will say, obviously, like I mentioned that I just turned 31 this week, and so for me, I think obviously I've had an inclination towards that, being in that demo myself, and I think we've created sort of a niche in that for probably like 65% of our clients, naturally. Yeah. I know there were questions over here too, so I want to make sure I know we have to like run across with the microphone. There, we've got 2 here. Hooray.
Hi, my name's Kimberly.
Hey, Kimberly.
From Eardog Productions. First of all, I loved your presentation. I'm so curious to know how strategic the naming of your company is, because I'm also a small girl, so
Yeah.
to know.
Oh, yeah. So I started Small Girls when I was 21. If you had told me that I would be here right now, still working at the same company and talking about our case studies 10 years later, I'd have been like, yeah, right. So when I named the company, I wasn't thinking about the fact that we would scale. So for example, hiring men or even tall people has probably been more difficult for us, because when they see the name, they think, oh, that's for short women. Or they think, I don't know that I could see my name attached to a business card or a LinkedIn profile. Or you know, it's amazing that GE took a really early chance on us. I think that says a lot more about them than it does about us, that they are so innovative and willing to push the envelope and take risks on new players and players with a name like Small Girls PR. We flat out had technology companies say to us, we just couldn't imagine someone with the name at Small Girls PR emailing, and that's their loss. But the inspiration was, I'm short, I'm 5'3", my co-founder is 5 feet tall, and we wanted to lead by example. And so we named the company Small Girls Big Business, and the idea was championing a personable approach to PR. And we thought there's nothing more personable than being a little bit tongue-in-cheek with the fact that we're really small, and we also, especially at the time, when I was 21, I looked 14. So a nod to that, and also like, yeah, we might be small, but there's nothing small about our strategy, if you will, hence Big Business. So it was a strategic name for communicating what we did. It's also very memorable. A lot of the people, I would say, like in the industry, like I know there's been people that spoke here from DeVries today or will later. So a lot of people's last names or acronyms. And so we wanted to stand out in that way, especially as a new business, that we didn't have any accolades or clout to pull from with a last name, so it didn't matter. If I could go back in time, it's hard to say if I would change it or not, because I think it's presented challenges now, but it was amazing for us then. Yeah. This guy.
This guy. Rafi Salem, 5 Blocks Reputation Management. I am very interested in the backlash between you and Burberry, as
Yeah.
well as any other women's company that's like, how dare you put women's hair on? Like, what are those stories like?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because on this side, right, we're the hero in the story. So I have no idea what it was like in Burberry HQ or with their comms team, and my condolences to them for that. I will say, like, I know our strengths and weaknesses. Like, we're not a crisis comms firm. We're very much rooted in consumer technology and business storytelling. I imagine that they had to hire a crisis comms firm on Burberry's side in response to that, because not only did we do this campaign that went viral and it is still cited now, and that campaign was like a year ago, but other brands caught wind after we did that, and they shared either the hashtag or their own sentiments about it, and just, again, aligning with the values of their consumer. So I think being really careful and sensitive to consumer opinion. Like, I was shocked that they were proudly promoting that. Even if it's great from a profit perspective, someone in comms would have known that consumers, especially millennials who have the largest spending power in the room these days, care about sustainability and would be pissed off by that. So I think it just goes to show, like, especially if you're doing a diversity and inclusion campaign, like having people of color in the room. If you're doing a women's rights campaign, having women in the room. Like, if you are a luxury retailer and you know that sustainability is an issue increasingly for consumers, have someone that cares about sustainability in the room so that you can have their thoughts heard and those rise to the table in your campaigns. I guess that's not even really your question, but it's some thoughts related. Cool, I think that was the last one. Anyway, thanks guys so much. Again, we're hiring, so if you want to work with us, please do.